I bought an entire display box of the new Blue Eyes White Destiny structure deck, and I'm going to be hosting a tournament at my house where all of my friends will get a free copy of the structure deck and have a chance to win a copy of the new Yu-Gi-Oh! Early Days collection for the Switch.
All right, let's go ahead and crack one of these guys open and see what it has. So the main purpose of this video is going to be talking about what it's going to be like to play one of these in a sealed environment. And I will eventually go back and make more content talking about what it's like to maybe play 3 structure decks of this out of the box and see how competitively viable that is. And then talking about alternate formats like Common Charity, because Common Charity gets absolutely spoiled by this structure deck. Oh my god, there is so many hand traps that are in this. And then Nibiru, printed at Common for the first time ever, completely shakes up Common Charity format in a very big way. And then so many of the Blue Eyes cards printed at Common, you could basically play a fully constructed Blue Eyes deck as it would have looked prior to the structure deck in Common now. So whatever Blue Eyes looked like before this structure deck is exactly how Common Charity Blue Eyes looks like now, pretty much, barring a few extra deck cards here and there. So starting off with the new foils, we have the Indigo Eyes Silver Dragon, which is a Xyz monster that is good at, I guess, breaking boards and pushing for a lot of damage. It negates your opponent's entire field. But what's silly about this is that this card is not going to really see any play on the competitive side. People have basically ruled it out as not viable. And the big reason is that it's too easy to interact with its field negate. It is more of it's a proactive effect, not a reactive effect. And it is just simply too easy to interact with. And so it's crazy to think that the game has come so far to where an effect that negates all of your opponent's monster effects on the field is too slow and not very good, and so people will not be playing this card. But in the context of the structure deck, it might come up. I think it's a good way to get around some of the protective effects, and then it will hit potentially for 5k, so it does get over some of the bigger defensive walls and stuff like that. Now, you really know that this new support is pushed as hell when they're giving us a Link 1, an in-archetype Link 1. Link 1s are historically some of the most broken cards in the game, whether it is Link Haribo or Nightmare Mermaid or even Striker Dragon. Dragons get another Link 1, and so do Spellcasters technically get 2 Link 1s as well if you include the Magistus one and this, because they can be made with a Spellcaster. But Link 1 that searches the field spell, it's iconic, it's incredibly strong, and it has 2 effects. It's going to be a really big choke point with your opponent's interaction and negation. And it synergizes just so well with the other cards in this structure deck. Like, design-wise, they really nailed it with this one, and it basically means that pretty much any normal summon in the deck is close to full combo, or at least some kind of combo, because this card exists. This card can turn some really, really bad hands into an actually playable game state. Another card that interacts with that wonderfully, probably maybe the best new card, hard to say, is Maiden. And this is obviously a retrain of the Maiden that came with the old version of the structure deck from 2013, and it's much, much better. So it activates True Light directly from your deck, basically makes True Light playable, because prior to this wave of support, it basically was not playable, and allows you, this and the spell card that I'm going to talk about next, and the Link 1, create this very easily recurable 1-card combo that is very much in line with modern deck building sensibilities. It's this very, very Snake Eyes, very Fiendsmith type of game plan of, like, you know, can your combo be executed incredibly consistently with like 1-card stars and stuff like that, and do all of your cards kind of search themselves and each other and that kind of thing. And then Wishes is a discard a card, search 2 of a thing that basically makes Melody completely obsolete. This card is crazy, and it has a bunch of targets, including Effect Veiler. Much like how Sage can search Effect Veiler, so can this. So this card is insane, and you will be searching it off of the True Light once you resolve Maiden. Another new extra deck boss monster, level 12 Synchro, the Blue Eyes Ultimate Spirit Dragon. So chances are, in the sealed environment with the structure deck, you're probably going to be making the regular Spirit Dragon and passing to your opponent, and then tagging it out for this guy on your opponent's turn, so that he will stay on the field throughout the duration of your opponent's turn and can be that live negate. So it is an Omni Negate, and you're basically trading the Graveyard Negate for an Omni Negate in this case, with something with bigger stats. So pretty cool card there. The new Kaiser Seahorse is awesome. It is an extender, and it actually can be a pretty decent starter as well. It's a great way to chain block the effect of the Link monster to prevent your opponent from Ash or Veiling it or imperming it, because all of those are in here. And so you can, I guess you can't, your opponent can still imperm it, but they can't Veiler or Ash it when you've chain blocked with this. And so great card, great starter. If you have, well, I mean, better extender, but a decent starter as well if you have to. It's unfortunate in the sealed environment that you only have one copy, because it is very, very good. And then Roar is the next piece of the puzzle with the 1-card combo, where it's like Wishes searches this card, which summons a Blue Eyes directly from deck. Again, it really makes a lot of older Blue Eyes cards completely redundant. And this kind of in combination with the summon from deck ability of Sage, that you are much more likely to be actually resolving in this version of the strategy, means that you can cut down on the number of copies of some of the main deck Blue Eyes cards in Constructed. Of course, in the Structure deck, you're playing with what comes in the box. And then new trap card, the last foil, the last super rare. The Structure deck includes Majesty. This is a way to pop cards your opponent controls, and is, I think, one of the only ways in the sealed Structure deck that you can pop your opponent's True Light. So that's interesting and something to keep in mind. Of course, you can search this off of Wishes, I believe. So if you are able to kind of weave this into your end board and then your opponent tries to set up, it's a good way to interrupt them in the Structure deck mirror match that we're going to be doing. So then, of course, they give us 3 Blue Eyes, which 3 is a bit bricky in this Structure deck, but we are going to be discarding them a lot for other effects, such as Wishes and Melody and you name it. And they gave us 3 different artworks here, which is pretty cool. I think that some people are upset we didn't get the SDK artwork, and I actually think there was a little bit of a missed opportunity with the Structure deck to not print this one in QCR, because each of the Structure decks include that promo card, and they only made the Ultimate Spirit Dragon, the Maiden, and Wishes the variant foil promos you can get with this. They didn't do the Link monster, which I think is super strange. And then I wish one of them would have been the ability to get this in QCR, because, you know, this game is obsessed with Blue Eyes. Konami's obsessed with Blue Eyes, and you know, they're trying to get all of the different Blue Eyes artworks in QCR, it seems like. So we've got Alternative, which is crazy that this is a common now. For Common Charity, not really that great of a card in this Structure deck, but in the Common Charity version of Blue Eyes will no doubt be playable. Might be a good card to fall back on in the simplified game state, because in the Structure deck version of this, because if you are able to get, there's 2 copies of Melody in here, so if you need to search that and a Blue Eyes just to have something to play out of your hand, it is not the worst card in the world. Jet Dragon is actually going to come up quite a bit in the Structure deck version, because you're either going to be summoning it off of Sage or off of Roar, or reviving it out of the graveyard when it's been pitched via other effects. Sometimes it ends up being just tribute fodder for a ritual or synchro material, but the fact that it's in the graveyard is technically set up, because you want to bring this guy back when one of your cards gets destroyed. Abyss Dragon is decent in this, because, again, crazy that this card is a common as well. Same thing with Jet Dragon. There is no regular polymerization in this deck for him to search, so he can only search Chaos Form, basically, is the only target. And if you wanted to, you could, if you have a good enough opening hand, you can incorporate this into your end board, where when you summon it, you add the Chaos Form, and then during the end phase, you add the Chaos Max, and then on the following turn, you have the Chaos Max to push for damage. But probably not something that's going to be really all that good, but it is something you can do. Dragon Spirit of White was already printed at common, so this one's not crazy. Again, this is one of the only ways to get rid of your opponent's back row. So if you need to get rid of your opponent's Mausoleum or their True Light or something like that, or they have a set trap that you think is going to be a problem and you need to like force it out, this card will be good for that. But it's not searchable by Melody, and I guess you can get to it off of Roar or Sage, but it's probably not the ideal target to do so. But it is kind of nice that it's in here for the structure deck because it is technically back row removal. And then, of course, we have Chaos Max and Chaos, regular Blue Eyes Chaos Dragon, which I think this card is extremely redundant. I don't know why Blue Eyes Chaos Dragon even exists. And then Chaos Max, I guess, is a cool fan favorite to be able to push for damage. This is now an option in common as well. Not my favorite cards in the world, but they actually do play fairly nicely in the sealed version of this. So I'm not super upset about their inclusion. There's so much new support for Blue Eyes since Chaos Max was released that kind of massages the restrictions around a card like that and makes it a little bit easier to play. We've got regular Whitestone, which is actually a really good normal summon in this deck if you have to do so. If you didn't open Sage or Maiden, it's a great normal summon because you can link it off, and again, you can chain block the Link Monster's search effect to add Mausoleum by adding the Blue Eyes to hand, and this is an if and a mandatory effect. So you're always searching a Blue Eyes with this no matter what. And then we have Ancient Whitestone. You guys should know how good this card is. It has two effects. One, if you let it sit in the graveyard during the end phase, and another one where you can just kind of quickly banish it from the graveyard at will to bring back a Blue Eyes from the graveyard to the field as well. Here's one of the insane things about this structure deck. They gave us 3 Sage. So from a sealed standpoint, this is one of the reasons why I was so excited about this, is every single structure deck comes with 3. And so your chances of getting a Sage in your opening hand is pretty high, which means a lot of this deck's combos are online, even in the limited sealed environment of the one structure deck. So I think that is just awesome. Kind of sucks for Constructed because you're going to have to buy 3 copies of the structure deck for Maiden and Wishes and etc. And so you're going to end up with a bunch of redundant commons of this that are not going to get used at all. So I think that maybe been a little bit of a silly design decision, but I guess it's worth it to them to have the cards that are essentially going to be neglected to take advantage of the casual player base that does want to play with this deck out of the box. And I think that more so than any other structure deck we've had in a long time, this deck is dedicated to being playable out of the box with some of the multiples that are in here, because not only are there multiples of Sage, but there's multiples of a couple other cards later that support that opinion. And I think that's awesome. They could have reprinted a bunch of other dumb redundant Blue Eyes cards in here, but they didn't. They gave us the best ones. They could have printed the old Maiden as a common in one of those slots. They didn't do that. It's not in the structure deck at all. There's also Priestess with Eyes of Blue, not in here. There's a million other Blue Eyes cards they could have put in here that just would not have seen play. And so that makes what we're doing with the sealed structure decks that much better. Includes Master with Eyes of Blue, which is actually essential for your main combo because chances are you're going to be searching this off of Sage if you can help it, and then you're going to be recurring the Sage from the graveyard back to your hand, and then summoning this off of Mausoleum to target your Maiden, to add back the Sage, and then have the Sage target the Maiden to trigger both the Maiden and the Sage's second effect. So very critical card to that combo. Opening it is not bad because it means that if you have to search off of Sage, you can search Effect Failure instead. So it adds another disruption to your final board/hand when you pass your turn. So 2 Dictator of D also now available at common to support the commentary version of this deck. This card is again, not a bad starter because it sends a Blue Eyes from deck to grave to summon itself. So it doesn't use your normal summon. You can link it off for the Link Monster. And then the vanilla Blue Eyes is already in the graveyard to be revived with the second effect of the Link Monster. So really good synergy. Probably not going to be used in Constructed, but just not necessary. There's already really good starters, but they gave us 2 of them. Really good card. Here's where things get bonkers. So this structure deck includes, as I said, not only the first ever printing of Nibiru at common, but also Ash Blossom, and also Effect Veiler at 2, which is ridiculous. And this card is searchable in this structure deck. So, yeah, not bad right out of the box there. And that's it for the monsters. So we have Chaos Form, summon the 2 ritual monsters. Ultimate Fusion at 2, once again, not a bad fallback card. If you can't summon the fusion monsters the intended way, or you get interrupted, or you have a bad hand where you have to, like, there was some testing I did where I basically had to pass on alternative and with this set to basically activate this during my opponent's turn and make Tyrant Dragon or one of the other fusions. This is also searchable in the deck, so not terrible, but not great either, but it's interesting they gave it to as a 2. They also gave us 2 Melody, and Melody is, like I said, a little bit obsolete in this version of the deck, but there are a lot of targets for this. Jet Dragon is also, not even just like regular Blue Eyes and alternative, but also Jet Dragon and the 2 rituals are also targets. But Dragon Spirit of White and Abyss Dragon are not targets for this, unfortunately, because of their stat line. We have the 1 Mausoleum, which of course is searchable off of the Link monster, and then the Burst Stream of Destruction, which is ironically searchable off of Mausoleum. And this interaction may seem really bad, but I actually was teching this back in 2016 when Blue Eyes was last meta, and I actually won a game or 2 off of this effect because I was playing like Galaxy Cyclone and like popped my own Mausoleum, banished it to search this, and wiped my opponent's board with this, and was able to get enough advantage back to win the game. It was wild. We'll see if that actually comes up in this structure deck. I doubt it. I think people are just going to be using this as a removal spell, which is also completely fine, assuming that your opponent doesn't have protection set up, which I think is going to be a major problem with this structure deck sealed, is the amount of protection, like targeting protection and destruction protection that exists within the cards in this deck, and how difficult it's going to be to get over your opponent's stuff. We've got 2 Trade-In as well. A necessary card to unbrick your hand a lot of times in this deck, but we've moved past the need to have this in Constructed because we are running minimal bricks. But in the sealed environment, this should be really good if you open a hand of like all level 8s or something, terrible like that. You can unbrick your hand with that. It also includes Call by the Grave, so not only does it include all those other hand traps, but it also includes Call by the Grave, which is insane. We've got True Light, which, again, available for the first time at common, an essential part of this structure deck, and because the Maiden sets this card already face up in your back row, makes this card so much better than it was. It went from basically being unplayable, in my opinion, to an essential part of the strategy. So very, very cool this is in here, but of course it does have the one notable ridiculous drawback, much like how Eternal Soul does, of it gets popped, it pops everything on your board. And so that is something that I think in the sealed environment is not terribly likely to happen, but could happen specifically if your opponent has the Majesty, I think the trap is, that lets you pop cards your opponent controls. We have the Ultimate Creature of Destruction, which is not bad in the sealed version of this. We've got Destined Rivals, which is a card I don't think I've ever read before, and I'm not going to start now. I'm going to skip it. And we also have Imperm. So you have Nibiru, Ash, Veiler at 2, Imperm, and Call by the Grave all in this structure deck. It is going to be really, really strong. And you can, if you have activated this card, and then you make Tyrant Dragon can reset this card from your grave to your field to have more interruption on your opponent's next turn if they even survive that long. So I think that is also really awesome. Then the additional extra deck stuff. So regular Blue Eyes Ultimate is only in here because of Neo Blue Eyes Ultimate needing a name to send from extra deck to grave to get its other effect. But we don't really care about either of these. The one that we really care about is Tyrant, where through the combo, the second effect of Wishes, I believe, is the one that equips the Neo Blue Eyes to a regular Blue Eyes you control, which fulfills the summoning condition of Tyrant. And then we can use the Graveyard Protection effect of Neo. So Neo is literally just there as material to make Tyrant, and sets up some Graveyard Protection as part of your end board. So really, really important there. And then Twin Burst is also not bad. Twin Burst may actually be a decent out to problematic monsters that otherwise can't be destroyed by your opponent. So Twin Burst kind of has a almost like a DD Warrior Lady-esque effect of like you don't take battle damage, and if it attacks something that survives the battle, you kill it kind of thing. So Twin Burst does have some utility in this sealed version of the structure deck. And then we talked about Tyrant Dragon a little bit, but Blue Eyes Tyrant Dragon is quite good in this. It's one of your best damage dealers and game enders, and is now easier to make than ever. We have the Synchros. We have Blue Eyes Spirit Dragon and Azure Eyes. Blue Eyes Spirit Dragon available for the first time at Common. And I think this card is going to be essential. It is actually really good in the mirror match because there are so many graveyard effects that this card can potentially shut off your opponent from. But then again, being able to pivot into the big Spirit Dragon on your opponent's turn for an Omni-Negate is pretty good as well. And then sometimes you have enough material to make 2 level 9 Synchros. I kind of wish there was more than one Spirit Dragon in the structure deck, but there's not, so we do make Azure Eyes. Gives us targeting protection, and if it makes it to the next turn, lets us float back a vanilla Blue Eyes. The cover card of the original 2013 structure deck, and is not really very good by today's standards at all. It honestly wasn't even that good when it was new, but we can... It does have its purposes as part of a larger end board in this sealed environment. Speaking of seals, we have Seal of the Heavenly Spheres. And so this is going to be a great card in this structure deck, and is also the first time this is available at Common. So that's really going to shake up the viability of dragon-based strategies in Common Charity as well. I think this card is insane in the structure deck, because even just summoning like a vanilla-ass Blue Eyes off of this effect in Sealed is going to enable a lot of combos on your own turn, and this card is going to help you get back to your own turn because it has such a strong removal effect. So that's it for the contents of the structure deck. So let's go ahead and play our games, and we will get back to you with how it went. So how did it go? I think it exceeded expectations. I think this structure deck is incredibly fun to play in a limited format like this. So if you can get 7 friends together and do a tournament like this, I think it would be a really fun time. I think it's pretty fair and balanced. There is a lot of incredibly powerful stuff in this structure deck, but in the specific limited environment where everything is exactly the contents of the structure deck and every match is a mirror match, it does feel pretty fair, and kind of knowing what your opponent can play adds a little bit of sort of meta knowledge to it. So I've done this before in the past. If I didn't say so before, I've done this with the 2017 Link Strike starter deck. Did it with the previous iteration of the Blue Eyes deck, the Saga of the Blue Eyes White Dragon structure deck. And that was reprinted like 2-ish years ago or something like that, for like the 8th time it's been reprinted. Did it with the recent reprint of the Lightsworn structure deck, which I have footage for, but I haven't been able to really finish that video. And then we also did it with the Red Dragon Archfiend Jack Atlas structure deck, because I bought the full display box of that, much like I did for this. So overall, I think it was awesome. We're going to talk about how these cards performed here. So the deck is bricky, for sure. You definitely do run into hands of like the rituals and unsummonable level 8s you can't really do anything with. And that is really unfortunate. But it is definitely a consequence of what type of deck this is. Maiden is the sole focus of the deck, just as she is in Constructed. So opening Maiden or opening Sage is the best way to get to your full combo. And the fact that the structure deck includes 3 Sage allows you to get to that combo extremely easily. Wishes is insane. Usually you are searching Wishes off of True Light. As part of the combo, you go Maiden for True. You go Sage for Maiden, Maiden for True Light for Wishes, Wishes for Saga and Master, or Saga and not Saga, Roar, Roar and Master, or Roar and Valor, and that's the normal combo. But even just hard opening Wishes is really good, because it's another way to get to Maiden. So you can kind of do the combo backwards if you open Wishes. So in Constructed, that's why you play 3 Wishes. Neo Kaiser Seahorse was a good normal summon if you didn't open Sage, but I actually never ever got to use the extender part of his effect. Never once did I see anyone in these duels. Actually, that's not true. There was one time where somebody hard made Ultimate Spirit using Neo Kaiser Seahorse's level modulation effect, but that was the only time. I personally, in Sealed and in Constructed, have never summoned him from hand as an extender. But I have used him as a normal summon to mill Blue Eyes from deck to the graveyard, which is not a bad normal summon if you didn't open Sage, but the card underperformed both in this and in Constructed, where I've played the deck so far. It's not as good as I thought it was going to be. Also, it's worth mentioning that I kind of just was the judge for this event. All my friends played, so I had 8 friends and I was the judge, and I was able to kind of monitor everybody's games and get a good feel of the gameplay. But you're also dealing with most people in the group. It's like the first time they've read these cards before, so they don't know a lot of the nuanced combos. And I did try to show them the one card combo with Sage, but attention spans vary, so not sure how well that stuck. Obviously, Aurora is really good, being able to summon Blue Eyes from deck. I don't think there was ever a situation I saw where you summon anything other than the vanilla Blue Eyes, because you were just not likely to have anything other than the vanilla on board. But if you're trying to go for the end board that is Spirit, Azure, and Tyrant and something else or whatever, then you would want to get 2 vanillas in rotation, because you need the vanilla in order to do stuff with the Link 1, and you need a vanilla to make into Azure. So it usually was over the course of the combo, 2 vanillas and Jet Dragon would get into rotation, and then some people would also bring in the Abyss Dragon into rotation if they were trying to search the ritual spell. There were bricky hands where sometimes the play was activate Melody Awakening Dragon, discard something, add the vanilla and alternative to hand, and just use alternative as a beater. And those situations are not great, but you do what you can. There was a time where I saw somebody summon Spirit Dragon, or Dragon Spirit of White, and banish True Light, which actually does not proc the destruction effect. The only way to destroy True Light and trigger the field wipe is with Majesty. When you talk about Majesty really quick, I almost skipped over that card. Majesty is insane. It is one of the most broken cards in a limited format. Being able to pop as many as 3 cards, especially if you have alternative in your graveyard, because alternative is treated as the vanilla in the graveyard, and it is searchable. If you hard open it, it's crazy, but if you search it over the course of your combo, like say you already have Roar and you search Majesty off of Wishes, it's insane. It's also been quite good in Constructed as well. So if you have a really good end board and your opponent and Majesty is the unknown set card, you can pop a lot of your opponent's like starters and materials for extra deck summons and stuff like that. The ritual monsters were pretty bad. A lot of people bricked on them. Chaos Max was game determinative at least once or twice. I actually had to fill in for a match against one of my friends, and she summoned Chaos Max, and I thought she was going to kill me with it for sure. And the only out to Chaos Max in this is Spheres. So because Spheres does not target and does not destroy, it's one of the only ways to get Chaos Max off the field. And I don't remember what I did. I think I used the second effect of True Light to revive the vanilla Blue Eyes from the graveyard, and then summon something else and linked into Spheres, and just pass back to her and just bounce the Chaos Max back. And it was a brick in her hand for the rest of that game. I think she still won that game, but it was like that card and the card she drew for turn was the only thing she had in hand, and it stayed a brick forever. There is multiple ways to ritual summon. There's the Graveyard Banish of Majesty, but that's rarely ever going to come up. Otherwise, you're hard making it with Chaos form. Vanilla Whitestone was a great starter, like I said, because you can normal summon that, link it off for the Link 1, and then go Chain Link 1, Spirit, Chain Link 2, Whitestone, and you can add the Blue Eyes to hand and chain block the Spirit so your opponent can't Asher Veiler it. Ancient Whitestone was good. A lot of people were opting to wait until the end phase to use the first effect rather than shotgunning the second effect, which is probably the more viable, better thing to be doing. 3 Spirits was insane, as I've been, or 3 Sages was insane, as I've been saying, and Sage has been a staple in Blue Eyes decks ever since the 2016 wave of support, but what's wild here is that now we are regularly and reliably using both effects off this single copy of Sage, especially if you get Master into rotation. A lot of people are not playing Master in Constructed, but I think he's insane. I think being able to add back the Sage and use the second effect on the Maiden on Field is just too good not to play. Dictator of D. This card heavily overperformed because he foolishes the Blue Eyes from deck, so he has a cost that is a positive effect, technically, and he fulfills those summoning conditions for the Link 1 as well. So he was actually such a good starter that I actually kind of low-key missed having him even in Constructed. The fact that he sets up your graveyard, summons himself from hand without using your normal summon, and makes the Link 1 is pretty good. Not nearly as good as Sage, or not even as good as opening Maiden, activating Maiden to get True Light, adding Wishes, adding Sage, normal summon Sage, you get Master. But, do what you can. And then all the hand traps. So Ash and Veiler were all over the place. In this, they were ashing the Link monster a lot, ashing Wishes a lot. But because it's I think everybody in the group understood that it was way more value to Ash or Veiler the Link 1 than it was to Ash or Veiler Sage, usually. Because even if you Ash Sage and then they link it off for the Link 1, oh, I realize I don't have Mausoleum in the picture here, hold on. If you Ash Sage and your opponent still just links him off for the Link 1, and they add Mausoleum can dump the vanilla Blue Eyes from deck, which makes the second effect of the Link 1 live. Sorry, I actually had to take Mausoleum out of this copy of the structure deck so I could play it in Constructed, but luckily I brought my deck in the room to record this, but I just forgot that I set it off screen there. So Mausoleum is a card that I actually really liked playing back in the day in the 2016 era of support for this deck, but it was crazy here. The attack bonus is negligible, but it has to have like some kind of positive effect. Really, you're just trying to target your guy on field and mill the vanilla Blue Eyes. Also, having 3 vanilla Blue Eyes in this was usually pretty bricky, but there were times in which you did get some value off of it, like with Majesty, or you needed something to add off of Melody, or something to summon from deck off of Sage or Roar, and it's like there were times where and I think one game of mine that ran particularly grindy, I was nearly running out of targets in deck. So it did actually matter occasionally, but ideally and in Constructed, you would not play 3 vanilla. Most people are playing 2, and I've seen some people play as few as 1. But yeah, Ash and Veiler were crazy. Nibiru, I actually think out of, 3 or 4, I think it was 4 rounds. We did play a full 4 rounds with 8 people, and I think I saw a Nibiru resolve 1 time. And it was to the point to where a lot of people in the play group were finding it to be a bit of an annoying card, because here's the thing. It only really does well if you're going second and your opponent combos off heavily. So it was only really good against the players that if you either opened well and you could do a big combo, or if it was against exactly like me and Sam that have the practice of the combos in this deck to hit 5 summons, because sometimes the other players would, just from a lack of comfortability with the deck, would play a little bit lower to the ground and just do things like, Alternative or Spirit Dragon kind of pass. And that's fine. That's if, it actually worked out to their benefit because they were Nibiru proof. But for most players, that resulted in Nibiru sitting in their hand dead, when it should be an instant win in this deck, because there are 0 outs to it. You cannot negate Nibiru in this. There is no way to interact with it, no way to respond to it. If you cause it to be live, you are just screwed. So Chaos Form is meh, it's the ritual spell. Ultimate Fusion was crazy, because Ultimate Fusion, if you went through part of your combo and got interrupted and just set this and passed, You wait until your opponent is trying to combo off or go into their battle phase, and you can quick play, activate it, make Tyrant Dragon by shuffling back Vanilla Blue Eyes and the Link Monster. You can shuffle the Link Monster back into your extra deck, where you can potentially activate it again on your turn. If it got negated on your first turn, guess what? On turn 3, you can make it again and try to search the field spell again. The two melodies were fine. They unfortunately do not really add any of the new cards, so you're still doing a very 2016 ass play where you're adding like the vanilla and alternative or something like that. Rarely do I think anybody actually got the rituals off of this. It was usually used to add alternative and have alternative be a body on the field, but it was also used to get rid of bricks in hand, like if you had like Jet Dragon in hand, or if you had Whitestone in hand, or something you wanted to discard. It was pretty good for that. Burst Stream of Destruction. It actually did come up. I won a game off of this card against in playtesting with Sam, where I wiped his board and then synchroed off the Vanilla Blue Eyes, so it didn't matter that it couldn't attack anymore because it was now a new monster. Trade-in was okay for unbricking hands. I think if you had a hand where the first thing you were doing was trade in because you didn't have a starter, you were in pretty rough shape. But I do remember somebody getting like a really insane rip off of trade in where they had an otherwise completely bricked up hand and they drew into Sage off of it. So that was always really cool to see. Call by the Grave was really cool. True Light again. Not having a way to out this card is a huge problem in the grind game, because you can always use that first effect on turn like 3 and beyond to keep reviving your material. And so it's a pretty insane card in the grind game, and without a good way to get rid of it, it definitely overperformed in the sealed environment a lot. So the next two traps were pretty bad. The Ultimate Creature of Destruction was resolved a couple of times to give your stuff protection, but Destiny Rivals I don't think was ever properly resolved. It was not good. Imperm was good, obviously, and I don't remember anybody resetting any of those traps to their back row off of Tyrant. Someone may have like discarded Ultimate Creature of Destruction and reset it to the field with Tyrant, but I don't remember. I don't think that was the case. In terms of the extra deck, obviously the Link one was crazy. Everybody was making it. Indigo Eyes. So this card is not played and constructed. It's considered to be pretty bad. It drove me absolutely crazy. Several people in the play group were like glued to this card, making it going first. And I had to tell them, I'm like, this card does nothing going first. It is a vanilla. It does not do anything. There's nothing on your opponent's field for it to negate. Stop making it going first. It is at best a going second card, but even then it's not really that good, because it reads like crazy, but in practice it doesn't end up being Dark Ruler No More on legs, because it doesn't have the ability where it can be responded to. It can be responded to, and by the time you have like 2 level 8 materials on the field and activate its effect, your opponent has had so many opportunities to interact with you that there's not really going to be anything left on their field to negate if it goes off successfully. So not a good card. I think also the fact that it's not a Blue Eyes card in any way. It is technically a generic Dragon Rank 8. And if you compare it to a lot of like the Galaxy Eyes ones, it's bad. It's not that good. I don't know what they were going for with this. I feel like even if it was like a Blue Eyes card in name, it would have been a lot better. But it doesn't benefit from any of the protection from stuff like Neo Ultimate or Ultimate Creature of Destruction or anything like that. Ultimate Spirit was good. Usually it was kind of just a wall. I don't really think the negate was used that often, but if you're making Spirit if you're summoning Spirit, passing your opponent, activating Spirit to summon Ultimate Spirit, and then Ultimate Spirit dies in the end phase and floats into something else, you can do that combo pretty easily, but only having one Spirit was definitely a problem in the structure deck. If there were more copies of Spirit, you would be able to do a lot more. But usually, the highest high roll combo is to end on both Spirit and Azure, so you can go ahead and make the ultimate Spirit, and Azure will protect it from dying. But somebody did summon Neo Ultimate the hard way, which was pretty funny, but not very good. And then Tyrant and Twin Burst did really, really well. Twin Burst was an interesting like removal spell. There was something. I'm trying to remember what it was. It was something that was. I think it was Tyrant actually. Somebody made Twin Burst to get rid of Tyrant because Tyrant is bigger, but Twin Burst basically like always wins combat even if he doesn't, kind of thing. And so I told people, Twin Burst is basically just a removal spell with extra steps, and people really took that to heart and actually got a lot of use out of the card. And then I guess we talked about the synchros enough. So finally, Spheres was crazy. A lot of people were making Spheres rather than using the second effect of the Link 1 to revive the Blue Eyes. They were using another body to link into it to make Spheres. And Spheres is an insanely powerful card. Again, I only really used it as an out to Chaos Max because I wanted to do a different combo. But the fact that Spheres is in this structure deck is crazy. So yeah, overall, I think this was an incredibly fun event. I highly recommend that you guys do it as well. I think that it is pretty fair and balanced. I think everybody will have a good time. There's not anything that's particularly frustrating about it except for bricking. You just got to make sure everybody in the play group has adequately read the cards and feels comfortable with it. Do some practice, do some test hands, that kind of thing. And yeah, there wasn't anything that was like super problematic or couldn't be activated or anything like that. We were going to do the Fire King structure deck as a limited format thing, but there are some cards that actually just do not work in that structure deck. So like there's, I think Chain Destruction is in there, and Chain Destruction actually cannot resolve if the situation is a mirror match with everybody playing only one copy of everything. So I was like, well, how the hell do we do this? We'd have to take out Chain Destruction to get the deck to work properly. So we never ended up doing that one, but I do highly recommend this one for a sealed environment. So I probably will try to do some more content with this. I'm working on several different constructed versions of the deck. I've got like 3 or 4 different builds I'm tossing around. And then Common Charity as well. There is now a pretty decent Common Charity version of the deck. You have Sage at common, Dictator of D at common for the first time. And Spheres at common, Spirit Dragon at common, stuff like that. Alternative at common, Jet Dragon at common. So there's a lot of possibilities for this deck at common. It won't be nearly as good as the structure deck, but it will basically be whatever the structure deck was prior to, or whatever Blue Eyes was prior to the structure deck is what Common Charity is probably going to look like. So thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time.